She said it's just a room, but then gave it to someone else's kids instead. My name's Alex, I'm 24, and I live with my mom in a small single-story house on the edge of Las Vegas. Nothing fancy, just 2 bedrooms, a narrow kitchen, and a living room that still smells faintly like cigarette smoke even though my mom quit years ago. She's been through a lot: divorce, debt, bad jobs, and I try not to hold it all against her. But lately, that's been getting harder. We have a kind of unspoken deal. I pay her $400 a month, which supposedly covers my share of rent, the power bill, and her cell plan. I know it doesn't cover everything, but it's not like I'm mooching. I've been working freelance jobs online for almost 3 years now. Editing, sound mixing, live stream production, that kind of thing. The work's inconsistent, but it's mine, and I've built a decent little operation in my room with gear I paid for out of my own pocket. A custom PC, dual monitors, a mounted mic with an arm stand, soundproofing foam I cut and mounted myself, and some lighting equipment that I probably didn't need, but makes me feel more professional. Altogether, the setup ran me close to $4,500. Every time I look at it, it reminds me that even if I don't have much, I've built something. My mom and I don't fight much. We're not exactly close, but we coexist. She does her thing, I do mine. That worked fine until her friend Cheryl came into the picture. Cheryl's someone my mom's known since high school. I'd only met her once or twice before last year. She's one of those people who talks over everyone, chain smokes, and wears sunglasses indoors like she's hiding from the consequences of her own life. I knew she was having a rough time. Some breakup, no job, no savings. I felt bad for her in a distant, polite way, until she showed up at our front door with 2 suitcases and a half-empty bottle of Coke in one hand, like she was just dropping by. Except she wasn't. Apparently, Cheryl had been kicked out of her apartment. Something about missed rent, a fight with the landlord, a bunch of drama I didn't care to hear. My mom didn't ask me about any of this. She just told me one afternoon while I was mid-edit on a client's podcast. Cheryl's going to stay with us for a little bit. Just until she gets back on her feet, she said, like it was the most casual thing in the world. For a little bit. I asked, where? In the living room. We'll make it work. And at first, it was annoying, but manageable. Cheryl mostly stayed on the pull-out couch, and I kept to my room. But within a week, she was using up my mom's phone charger, my shampoo, and once even my iced coffee from the fridge. I let that slide. It wasn't worth the drama. Then she started going into my room. I came home one day from grabbing groceries. Just a quick run. I wasn't gone more than 45 minutes. And there she was, in my chair, feet up on my desk like she owned the place. She was messing with my editing software, clicking around like she was curious or something. I lost it. What are you doing in here? She blinked at me, totally unfazed. Just checking out your little studio thing. It's cute. I looked at my mic arm. It had been bent. Not broken, but clearly yanked. I could already tell the hinge was going to be loose now. I told her to get out, told her not to touch anything, and that this room wasn't just mine. It was my workspace. She rolled her eyes, muttered something about me being dramatic, and walked out like I was the one who had done something wrong. Later that night, I told my mom I wanted Cheryl gone. She's just trying to figure things out, my mom said. You have to be a little more understanding. Understanding? She was in my room messing with my gear. She didn't mean any harm. You're always so touchy. I pay rent, I said. This is supposed to be my space too. You pay what you can. This is still my house. That line stuck with me more than I wanted to admit. I went back to my room, stared at my setup, and felt a mix of rage and helplessness. My gear wasn't just equipment, it was how I survived. Every hour of work, every client, every invoice, it all happened in this room. And now it wasn't even safe. Things only got worse from there. Cheryl started inviting people over. Not friends, not even acquaintances, random people she met at the gas station or from some Facebook group she was in. They'd sit around in our living room like it was a dive bar. One guy even fell asleep in the hallway outside my room. I started locking my door, but that only made things more tense. My mom said I was acting paranoid, like I was accusing Cheryl of stealing or something. I said I didn't trust people I didn't know walking around in a house where thousands of dollars of gear were sitting one wall away. My mom told me if I didn't like it, I could leave. It wasn't a scream, not even a threat. Just a quiet sentence said while folding laundry. If you don't like it, you can leave. I didn't say anything back. That night, I applied for 2 short-term rentals. Nothing big, just studios on the other side of town where I could move my setup and sleep in peace. It wouldn't be easy. I'd have to stretch my budget, maybe sell off some collectibles, but it would be mine. I haven't told her yet. I'm still figuring out the logistics. But the moment I find a place that doesn't smell like mold or share a wall with a barking dog, I'm gone. And I'm taking every cent of my setup with me. It happened on a Thursday, middle of the week, one of those days where you're just trying to get through it without any extra drama. I was out most of the day running errands and hitting a client meeting that went longer than I planned. Nothing big, just a consultation for a small YouTube channel that wanted help setting up a stream layout and some basic sound leveling. I was already tired and all I wanted was to get home, throw some leftovers in the microwave, maybe jump on a call with a friend, and then knock out some light editing. I parked on the curb, noticed there were more cars than usual on our narrow street, but didn't think much of it. Probably just one of the neighbors having guests over. I walked up the driveway like I always did, headphones still in, plastic grocery bag in one hand with some frozen pizza and coffee creamer. The moment I opened the door, I knew something was off. There were voices inside that I didn't recognize, children laughing way too loudly for this late in the evening. I stepped into the living room and froze. There were toys everywhere. Plastic bins of building blocks, a stuffed animal that looked like it had already lived through a war, a baby walker parked half sideways by the couch. And in the corner, sitting cross-legged on the pull-out, was a woman I hadn't seen in years, Tracy. Tracy used to be one of my mom's co-workers back when she worked part-time at some office supply store. I remembered her from a couple of 4th of July cookouts. She always brought store-bought potato salad and acted like it was a family recipe. She looked exactly the same now, only more tired, with her hair pulled into a frizzy bun and a big blanket over her lap, like she'd been camped there all day. My mom was sitting next to her, laughing at something one of the kids said, holding a glass of wine like it was just another casual weeknight. I stood there in the doorway, waiting for someone to explain. No one did. After about 10 seconds, I cleared my throat. My mom looked up like she just realized I existed. "Oh, you're back. Good. Tracy and the kids are staying with us for a little while. Just until she figures some things out." I blinked. "What?" "She's going through a divorce. It's been hard on her." I didn't say anything at first, just nodded slowly, still standing by the door like some weird guest in my own house. I told myself, fine, whatever, it's the living room, it's temporary, I'll deal. I wasn't happy about it, but I could swallow it if it meant a few weeks of inconvenience. But even as I said that in my head, something didn't sit right. The way my mom didn't ask, didn't even give me a heads up, like it wasn't even something worth mentioning. I made a quiet exit into the kitchen, dropped the grocery bag, and went straight to my room. Except I couldn't get in. The door was open, wide open. I stepped inside, and everything went still. My brain couldn't process what I was looking at. My bed had been stripped, sheets gone, mattress cover stained with something I didn't want to think about. My gaming chair was gone. Literally gone. In its place were 3 little plastic stools in bright colors, the kind you see in kindergarten classrooms. My desk had been pushed up against the wall like an afterthought, and on top of it, my microphone, my Audio-Technica condenser mic that I spent months researching before buying, was lying on its side on the hardwood floor. The shock mount was snapped. The arm bent backwards like someone had tried to fold it and gave up. And right there, sitting at my desk like it was a coloring table, was one of the kids. Maybe 7 years old, clicking at my keyboard with chocolate-streaked fingers, the monitor flashing with a cracked line through the center like someone had punched it or dropped it. I couldn't breathe. I felt something primal in me rise up. I stepped forward and the kid turned around, startled, eyes wide. "Who said you could be in here?" I asked, not yelling yet, but close. The kid blinked, clearly confused. "Mom said this is my room now." "Your room." That's what he said. I turned and stormed down the hallway, my footsteps like thunder on the old wood. My mom and Tracy were still in the living room, laughing about something, drinking like they didn't have a care in the world. I didn't even try to stay calm. What the hell happened to my room? My mom gave me this tight-lipped sigh, like she was dealing with a toddler. "Relax, Alex. We just moved some things around so the kids could have more space. Tracy needed a quiet area for them to sleep. It's not a big deal." "Not a big deal? You let them into my room. They trashed my equipment. My monitor is broken. My mic is on the floor. What part of that isn't a big deal?" Tracy stood up then, hands on her hips like she was the one who'd been wronged. "Your setup was in the way. The kids needed somewhere to play. And if you took better care of your stuff, maybe it wouldn't be broken." I stared at her. My voice dropped. "You're joking." My mom stepped in. "We try to be careful. But this is my house, Alex. You live here, but I decide how the space gets used. Don't act like you're paying a mortgage." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "I pay you $400 a month. I cover the electric. I pay for your phone bill. And you let someone I barely know walk into my space and treat it like a daycare." Tracy scoffed. "It's not like we're asking for much. Just a little extra room." My laugh came out bitter. "You didn't ask for anything. You took it." That night, I slept in my car. Not because I had to, but because I couldn't be in that house. I couldn't look at the chaos in my room, or listen to the sound of children breaking more of the life I built. I sat in the parking lot of a 24-hour Walgreens, my phone in my lap, and I stared at listings for studio apartments and workspaces. I didn't care how much it would cost. Something had snapped. I wasn't just a renter in my mom's house anymore. I was a stranger, a problem, a temporary inconvenience in a place where I'd lived my entire life. And all it took was one woman with a sad story and two kids to push me completely out of my own room. I didn't sleep much that night in the car. I kept going over everything in my head, trying to figure out if I had missed something, if maybe I'd overreacted or misunderstood what was happening. But every time I closed my eyes, all I could see was that cracked monitor and my microphone lying on the hardwood like it was trash. I got back to the house early in the morning, before anyone else was up, and just stood in front of my door for a long time. It wasn't even my door anymore. It was wide open, and inside, I could hear cartoons playing on full volume. Something inside me finally snapped. Around 10, once the house was fully awake, I walked into the kitchen where my mom was pouring coffee and Tracy was scrolling through her phone like she paid rent. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just stood there and asked calmly, "Can we talk?" My mom looked up, already annoyed. "About what now?" "My room," I said. "My things. Everything that happened yesterday." She exhaled slowly, like I was exhausting her. "Alex, we've been over this. They needed space. Tracy and the kids are going through something." "I didn't ask to move anyone out," I said. "I'm saying you didn't talk to me. You didn't even warn me. My gear was damaged. That monitor cost me $500. The mic is custom mounted. None of that is replaceable right now." "It's just stuff," she said. "It can be fixed. You're an adult. You need to learn how to adapt." I stared at her, not even sure how to respond to that. "Adapt? You mean give up the only space I have in this house without a conversation?" "This is my house," she said, cutting me off. "You live here, but this is still my space. I have the right to decide what happens in it." Tracy, who had been quiet up until that point, finally looked up from her phone and added, "Honestly, you're being selfish. Dramatic, too. It's just a room." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A room that I pay for. A room I work in. A room where I built something. "You didn't even think to ask." "We didn't have time for a family meeting," my mom snapped. "It was a sudden situation. You think I wanted this? You think I'm enjoying this chaos?" "You could have put them in the guest room," I said. "It's barely used. Let me move my equipment there so I can at least keep working." "No," she said immediately. "That room's too messy. And there's no space." "I'll clean it," I offered. "I'll reorganize it. I don't even need the whole thing. Just enough for my desk and the monitors." I said no. "Alex," she snapped. "Stop acting like this is some big injustice. We're all sacrificing right now. No one else lost their room," I said. "No one else had their property broken. I'm not sacrificing. I'm being pushed out." My mom just shook her head and walked out of the kitchen. Tracy gave me this tight little smile, like she'd won something, and went back to scrolling through her feed. I stood there, fingers clenched around the edge of the table, feeling this cold, heavy silence settle in my chest. For years I'd told myself I was doing the right thing, staying here, paying my share, helping out with bills, keeping my head down. I thought I was being responsible. I thought I was building something. But I was just convenient. Easy to step over. Easy to ignore. And now I was just in the way. A few days after that argument in the kitchen, things went from bad to surreal. I came home from a late-night edit session I'd managed to scrape together on my laptop at a friend's house, and found a note taped to my door. Not even a real note. Just a torn-out notebook page, scribbled in red ink. "Do not enter. This is now their space. Talk to me if you have questions, Mom." I stood there for a long time, staring at it, not even angry at first. Just numb. I pulled the paper off the door, opened it anyway, and found one of the kids asleep on my mattress, clutching one of my old hoodies like it was a blanket. The desk was gone. My second monitor was nowhere to be seen. My desktop tower was sitting next to the dresser, unplugged, dusty, cables tangled up in a shoebox. Half my foam sound panels were ripped from the walls. There were crayon marks all over the closet door. I didn't even step in. I just closed the door again and walked down the hallway to the living room, where my mom and Tracy were watching some sitcom rerun like nothing had happened. I asked her, flat out, what the hell was going on now. She barely looked away from the TV. "I thought I made it clear," she said. "That room belongs to Tracy's kids now. You have no right to be in there. It's their space." I didn't yell. I didn't argue. I just walked into the kitchen, grabbed a pillow from the couch, and crashed there for the night. It wasn't the first time. Wasn't the last either. For the next 2 weeks, I bounced between the living room and my car depending on what time of day it was and how many people were home. If I tried to sleep in the living room during the day, there were kids running around yelling or watching cartoons at full blast. If I stayed too late on the couch at night, Tracy would start dropping passive-aggressive comments about how the living room wasn't meant to be a bedroom. I started packing up my laptop and heading to a coffee shop on the other side of town, just so I could think straight for a few hours. They had decent Wi-Fi and didn't kick me out if I nursed a coffee for 4 hours. But even that couldn't replace my setup. I couldn't record anything. I couldn't stream. I couldn't run audio cleanly without my interface and mic. The background noise was awful. And editing video on a laptop screen with no proper monitor setup? Forget it. I lost 2 clients that week. One of them was a regular YouTuber out of San Diego I'd been working with for over a year. We'd done all kinds of projects together. Music overlays, transitions, sound leveling. He messaged me after I sent in a rushed, choppy edit that I tried to do from the front seat of my car. Said he appreciated the work, but needed someone more consistent. The second client didn't even say goodbye, just stopped responding. I couldn't blame them. My output had tanked. I was sleeping 5 hours a night, max, and eating whatever I could microwave at 1 a.m. without waking the kids. I'd started taking fewer jobs just to avoid promising work I couldn't deliver. And then rent came due. That was the first time in 8 months I couldn't cover the full $400. I'd always managed, even when things were tight. But this time I was short. I only had $275 in my account, and after groceries and gas, that was going to drop fast. I told my mom I was running behind, but I'd get the rest by the end of the week. She didn't yell, didn't even look surprised, just shrugged and said, "Well, maybe it's time you moved on if you can't handle the responsibility." I remember standing there, holding my card in one hand, the silence pressing in on my skull like a migraine. That room, that gear, that house, it had stopped being mine the moment Tracy moved in. I just hadn't realized how quickly everything I built could be treated like clutter, like noise, like something that needed to be cleared out to make room for someone else's mess. And now, apparently, I didn't even deserve to sleep in the house I paid to live in. I waited until the evening when the house had finally quieted down. Tracy had taken the kids out for ice cream or something, and for once the living room wasn't covered in Legos or juice-stained blankets. My mom was on the couch, scrolling through her phone with her legs tucked up under her like everything was normal. I sat down in the chair across from her and waited a second before speaking. She didn't look up. "I need to talk to you, and I want you to actually listen this time." She sighed but didn't say anything, so I went on. "I've been living like a guest in my own home for almost a month. I've slept in the car more times than I can count. I lost clients. I can't work. And the space I pay for is being used like a daycare. You've made it clear I don't matter here, but I'm going to say this anyway: either I get my room back, or I'm leaving." She finally looked up from her screen, blinked twice like she couldn't believe I was still hung up on this. Then she laughed. Not a big loud laugh, just this small, dry chuckle like I'd said something ridiculous. "You're not going anywhere," she said. "You have no money. You can't even pay full rent." I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, and kept my voice calm. "I'd rather live in the garage. Hell, I'd rather sleep in a storage unit. But I'm not paying another dollar to be treated like a nuisance." She rolled her eyes and waved her hand like she was swatting away a mosquito. "Don't be dramatic. I'm serious," I said. "No more rent. No more favors. If I'm going to be treated like an inconvenience, then you don't get to cash my checks and ignore everything else." At that moment, Tracy walked in through the front door holding a bag from 7-Eleven and a juice box, and must have caught the tail end of what I said because she looked over and smiled like we were all part of some sitcom. "Well," she said, brushing past me to drop the bag on the counter, "at least the kids are happy." I didn't respond. Neither did my mom. We just sat there in the weird silence that follows when something real gets said and no one knows what to do with it. My mom didn't fight me on it. Didn't argue. She just went back to scrolling like none of it really mattered anyway. And in that moment, I knew I was already gone. 4 days after that conversation in the living room, I was gone. No warnings. No goodbyes. No drawn-out drama. Just quiet movement in the middle of the night while everyone else was asleep. I found the listing on Craigslist around 2 in the morning, after another night sleeping on the floor with a sweatshirt for a pillow and my phone battery dying in my hand. The post was simple. Room for rent. Private entrance. Quiet neighborhood. Utilities included. $450 a month. No background check. I messaged the guy immediately and got a reply less than 15 minutes later. He said if I had first month's rent in cash, I could move in that day. I told him I'd be there before sunrise. I packed everything I still had access to, what hadn't already been co-opted or boxed by someone else. My clothes, laptop, a few cords, an external hard drive, a cracked headphone stand, my backup mic. Everything fit in 2 laundry baskets and a backpack. I didn't even try to get back into my old room. I didn't care what they'd done with the rest. Let Tracy keep the busted monitor. Let the kids color on the walls. I was done fighting for scraps in a house that stopped feeling like mine a long time ago. I left the last mug of coffee I'd made sitting on the kitchen counter, half full, next to a spoon that still had sugar crusted to the side. My keys were in the fruit bowl where we always dropped them growing up. No note. No explanation. The room I moved into wasn't much. The walls were yellowed with time, and the carpet had seen better decades. The window faced an alley, and the only furniture was a twin bed with a frame that creaked if I shifted my weight too fast. But it had a lock, a door, silence. I plugged in my laptop, tethered my phone's data, and sat down on the floor. It wasn't home, but it was mine, and that was enough. My mom found out around 8 that morning. I know because my phone lit up with 6 missed calls and 2 angry voicemails before I'd even fully opened my eyes. The first one was cold, furious, demanding to know where I was and what I thought I was doing. She called me ungrateful, said I was acting like a child, said Tracy and the kids had nothing to do with it, and that I'd made everything harder than it had to be. The second voicemail came 3 hours later. Her tone had shifted, quieter, tired. She said she didn't mean what she said earlier. She just didn't expect me to actually leave. She told me the bills were piling up, that she didn't know how she was going to manage everything without my help, that she'd been counting on me. She texted again later that night. Come back. We can talk. Please. I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. It was the following afternoon when I finally listened to the voicemail. Not one of the ones she left for me. Those I'd already deleted without opening. This one had come through by accident, I think. A forwarded voice message from her to someone else, maybe meant to be private, maybe just careless. It showed up on my phone as an audio file with no context, and for some reason, I pressed play. I recognized her voice immediately. She sounded tired, drained in that way she gets when the performance starts to slip. There was a pause at the beginning, then a short laugh, almost bitter. I didn't think he'd actually leave, she said. I thought he was bluffing. Now I've got to pay the electricity bill myself. That was it. Barely 10 seconds long. But it said everything. She didn't say she missed me. She didn't say she was worried. She didn't talk about how the house felt different or how she regretted how things ended. Just that the bills were now hers to deal with. That she was surprised I had the nerve to walk away from being her safety net. And in that moment, something just clicked in my head. It wasn't about losing my room. It wasn't even about the equipment or the clients or the nights I spent in the car. It was about what I actually was in that house, a bill payer. A walking buffer between her and responsibility. I wasn't a son to her. I was a line item on a spreadsheet, something she could rely on until it got inconvenient. That voicemail played twice before I closed it. Then I sat on the edge of my new bed, stared at the cracked paint on the wall, and felt this quiet kind of clarity settle over me. For so long I thought I didn't have a home because I couldn't afford to move out. But that wasn't the truth. The truth was, I'd never lacked a home. I'd lacked respect. I'd lacked a place where I was seen as a person instead of a convenience. And that was never going to change, no matter how many checks I wrote. I blocked her number. Blocked her on every app, every platform. I didn't need another apology that wasn't really an apology. I didn't need another guilt trip masked as a concern. I left one message before I shut it all down. One sentence. No greeting. No anger. Just the truth. I'm not going back to a place where I'm not respected. And that was the last thing I ever said to her. 2 months passed before I heard anything again. Life had started to settle in ways I hadn't expected. The room I'd rented was still small and drafty, but it was quiet. I had space to think. I bought a secondhand desk off Facebook Marketplace, started rebuilding my setup piece by piece. Got a few new freelance gigs, nothing big, but steady enough. I could breathe again. I could walk through the front door without wondering if someone had touched my stuff or if I was going to be called selfish for wanting to sleep in my own bed. It wasn't perfect, but for the first time in years, it was mine. Then the letter showed up. No return address, just my name and the street number in handwriting I knew better than my own. She'd always written in all caps, tight, sharp letters, like she was afraid someone might misunderstand her if she gave them room to breathe. I held it for a few minutes before opening it, just sitting on the edge of the bed with the envelope in my hand, trying to decide if I even wanted to see what was inside. It was 2 pages, lined paper, folded twice. She didn't waste time with apologies. The letter started with, Tracy moved out last week. She found a place near Henderson. No explanation for why. No mention of a thank you or a sorry for what happened. Just that she was gone. Then she wrote about the house, how the kids had caused more damage than she expected, how the living room walls were covered in marker, how the microwave door wouldn't close all the way, how someone had spilled grape juice on the carpet and she couldn't get the stain out. She said she was exhausted. Said she didn't know how she was supposed to handle all of this without me. The last line before the signature read, I didn't realize how much I depended on you. I don't know how to live without you here. Folded in with the letter was a check. $600. In the memo line, she'd written to apologize. I stared at it for a long time. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. I just felt nothing. It didn't feel like a peace offering. It felt like another transaction. Another attempt to patch over something real with something that had a dollar sign attached to it. I didn't need it. I didn't need her money or her guilt or her idea of closure. I didn't need to be the unpaid problem solver anymore. I didn't need recognition from someone who only missed me when the bills came due. I tore the check in half right there at the desk. Then again, down the middle, until the pieces looked like they'd never belonged together at all. I dropped them in the trash and opened a fresh project file on my laptop. I was done chasing acceptance from someone who never saw me as anything more than a buffer between her and accountability. I'm my own family now. Thanks for reading, Reddit. I'd really like to know what you think about this whole thing. Have any of you gone through something like this, where it turns out you weren't part of a home, just a convenience? What would you have done in my place? Let me know. I'll be in the comments.